You can cut now. Hey everyone, Chris here, the RC Geek, coming to you from the shop today, and we are talking about the Arrows RC, a MiG-29. This is a twin 64mm EDF model. Really looks good on the bench and flies nicely. Now, this was a total impulse buy for me. I had just released a 64mm mini burner, simulated afterburner setup, and I actually wanted to try it out in a twin setup, and this model was just the perfect candidate. I can tell you it looks amazing in the airplane. It's really fun to just have at the field. Now, in terms of the assembly of the model, it starts out with the dorsals. You glue those on, and they recommend a medium CA, which I recommend as well. Works fantastically. And then from there, you install the elevators, and there are aluminum shafts that you just slide into place, and those get held in with screws. And then from there, just install the wings. And that's really about it on the assembly. Super simple. It's really well engineered airframe. It goes together really well. The fit of everything is good. And so from there, onto your radio setup. Now I've got a Spectrum AR620 receiver in here. Works fantastically. You need at least 6 channels because you got the flaps and the retracts. With the airplane assembled on the bench, it really looks nice. It's got some really nice features to it. Personally, I like the paint scheme that's on it, although I can imagine what it would look like in a really nice, dirtied up Russian camouflage. But the one thing that really struck me about the model was the scale retracts and the landing gear. So they went all out on the gear with the full scale oleos, which I was really happy to see. And they really look nice on the airplane. Now, one of the things that I noticed with respect to the gear was that the springs, especially in the mains, were extremely stiff. So as a result, what was happening is the mains were sitting extremely tall, and the airplane had a almost nose down attitude to it. Combine that with the fact that the nose is actually fairly soft on the spring, I just had a sense that that was going to be a problem in terms of takeoff. So what I ended up doing is I replaced the springs in the mains with ballpoint pen springs, and then I added a 1/4 inch spacer in there as well. And so now, as a result, the airplane has a much nicer nose up attitude, more scale looking, and also the mains provide a little bit more cushion. And on the nose strut, I ended up adding a 1/4 inch spacer there as well, but I kept the stock spring in there. And so what that does is it keeps that nose gear from compressing too much. Because it is fairly soft, and even so on the landings, it does tend to bounce that nose up a little bit if you don't land it quite right. In addition, I did add the mini burners, the simulated afterburner lights on the fans. Super simple installation. These are Outrunner motors that are in here, and so the system that I designed actually just attaches to 3 of the stators in the fan. And so I used some aluminum tape to hold them in place, and then I added just a touch of glue at the root of each of those captures that cantilever the lights behind the motors. Looks fantastic in the model, works great, and it's really fun to see in the air. They show up wonderfully. Now I'm flying the airplane with a Spectrum 6S 4000 milliamp hour pack. I've got my timer set at 3.5 minutes, and that seems about right for the setup. This puts the CG right at the forward location for me. I found that the CG recommendations were on point. They have a recommended range, so if you're in there, you should be good. In my case here, I'm at 85 millimeters as measured from the wing root leading edge aft, and that actually coincides with the forward wing bolt that holds the wings on. So if you just lift the airplane up from those bolts, that's going to set your CG really simply. So it's a really simple point of reference. Now in terms of the control throws for aileron, I'm at 18 millimeters up and down with 10% expo. For the elevator, 32 millimeters up and down with no expo at all. The airplane does have fairly small elevators, so you do need that deflection there. And then for the rudder, at 17 millimeters left and right with 20% expo, and that helps desensitize the steering. Finally, for the flaps, 15 millimeters at the midpoint with 1 millimeter up elevator mix, and 40 millimeters at the full flap setting with 3 millimeter up elevator mix. And those equate to a 5% and a 12% up elevator mix respectively in the radio. In terms of flying the airplane, it really does maneuver well. It looks good doing it. And the overall performance is really quite nice. It's got good verticals, good speed, really no complaints at all there. I do wish, however, that the airplane was just a touch bigger. It does tend to fly a little bit heavy to me, and so if it was just a touch larger, it would help with that, and also would give a little bit more space in the battery areas. There's not a whole lot of room in there. Otherwise, it is a nice flying airplane, and I'm actually quite impressed with how robust the landing gear have been. I've had a few not so perfect landings and the airplane has handled it like a champ. What I found is that the airplane does like to land in that nose up attitude, which you would expect for a low aspect ratio jet like this, but it does need a bit of throttle, and that goes back to kind of the weight of the airplane and the wing loading. So once you sort that all out, it will land pretty nicely, but you do have to be prudent with the throttle to avoid the airplane sinking on you too quickly. If you do find that it sinks, you add the power and it will fly right out of that. But if you're not used to landing an airplane like a delta wing jet, it does take some getting used to. And so yeah, let's take this out to the field, show you guys what it can do, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap this up. Alright guys, so there we have the Aeros RC MiG-29. You know, this really is a cool model. It really looks good, it flies nicely. With the mini burners in there, I really like the looks of it in the air. If I had my wish, the airplane would be just a touch larger, and that would help increase the wing area, and that would make the airplane fly a little bit lighter and also land a little bit better. Alright, so that's it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this review helpful. Don't forget to follow along on social media at the RC Geek. Subscribe, and until next time, I'll see you at the field.